Welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast, where all healing is always a matter of the heart. I'm your host, Donna Campbell, also known as the Mind Whisperer, interviewing guest experts on all matters of healing. Hi, everybody, and welcome back here to the Healing Heart Podcast. And I am your host, Donna Campbell. And my guest today, she is truly exceptional. And it's on a topic that I absolutely love and something that I study. So I'm always interested in learning more. She is a doctor in medicine and does hormone therapy and works with women's health. She is truly an expert in this area because she has over 27 years. And she has cared for over 6,000 patients during that time. So she combines her allopathic endocrinology training with mind-body integrative medicine, intuition, and lifestyle honoring. She empowers through women-centered approaches, helping her patients all across the world heal. So everyone, let's welcome the author of Mind Body Secrets, Dr. Beatriz Olson. Welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna. This is so exciting.
Yes, I am so thrilled that you're here because you bring in that integrative approach, women's health, endocrinology, but then also combine it with the whole spiritual, metaphysical, intuitive lifestyle. So share with me a little bit about your background as a doctor and then how you started looking at things from that integrative medicine point of view.
Well, it all began from Cuba. When I was a little girl, my father is a physician and my mother is a pharmacist. And I remember that whenever I was sick, I might receive antibiotics from my father, and then my mother would take me to a healer. Mm-hmm. and I would get incantations, and somehow I would feel better. And at times I would only get the healer and I would feel better. So from very early on in my life, I felt that there were different ways of renewing wellness in the body. Mm-hmm. And then when I came to America, we went through Spain. I'm a political refugee. Through Spain to America, I came to America and I had the crazy American diet, which I had never had. And I became an obese teenager. And it was really a very complex time being a foreigner, being the other, being called fat, being called spick, all of the terrible things that one can experience as a young immigrant, which affected very much how I was showing up in the world and feeling about myself. So I decided early on that I was going to become a doctor so that I could help myself and help others be better. And so I became an endocrinologist and a metabolism expert. And as an endocrinologist, as it turns out, with all of my training, it was not enough to help people, or at least I didn't feel it was. So that's when I learned about Deepak Chopra in the 1990s. And I took courses with Deepak to learn about mind-body medicine and Ayurveda. And since then, I recognized that in the conventional medical system, we only focus on disease and fixing. In the Eastern world, with Ayurvedic medicine and other Eastern wonderful medical systems, the feeling is that the body has the capacity for innate healing and that there is a pathway or a spectrum between between being well and being sick. And there's various degrees of lack of wellness that one gets until one gets disease. So that's when I had my big aha moment. So I can prevent disease. It's not just about treating, it's about preventing it. So then I combined the two together, and I have been practicing academic endocrinologist. I've been faculty at the National Institutes of Health at Yale University. I have taught classic endocrinology, which is the study of hormones, but then I have combined it with mind-body healing to create a different holistic and help patients reach their wholeness. So that's how the journey goes to this point of my life.
I love that. I love that. And for those that are listening to the Healing Heart podcast, if they don't know what endocrinology is or what a doctorate in endocrinology is, can you share with us a little bit about that from the medical standpoint?
Sure. So if you think about hormones, I call them, these are the things that spice your life. Okay. So hormones are responsible for their little molecules that are secreted by glands in the body. You know, everybody knows the thyroid gland releases thyroid hormone. Well, our ovaries release estrogen and progesterone. And it's that estrogen and progesterone, the cycling of it, that allows us to become women from children and allow us to grow and get pregnant and do all of the things that we do later on in life. For men, testosterone comes from the testicles, although women have testosterone too. But for men, that's what allows them to grow, to become more muscular, to get their secondary characteristics, which are, hair and beard and other things. So it's the study of hormones under normal circumstances and then abnormal circumstances. And we all hear about, for example, the adrenal glands and stress. So
Yes.
when we're stressed out, our adrenal glands, these are little glands that sit like little hats on top of the kidneys, and they release these molecules that are supposed to normally help us in the morning to have the energy that we have in the morning, and later on in the night they drop, and then we get sleepy and go to bed. This is coordinated with the hypothalamus and the pituitary, with various hormones that are secreted at different times of the day to do things. But when we're stressed, the adrenal glands really pump out a lot of this excess cortisol, and this has an impact as to how we regulate our metabolism, whether or not we gain weight, and then there are more abnormal things that can happen, like growths in the thyroid. So it can be thyroid cancer. We can have growths in the adrenal that produce too much adrenal hormones, and then that's when we call them diseases, when you go from a place when you can reverse these through lifestyle changes and modifications, as opposed to needing something else that is different to be able to remove an excessive growth or an abnormal thing. So hormones really regulate everything about our lives, our sex drive, whether we're attracted to other people. All of these are parts of this beautiful, intricate system of little molecules secreted from the different glands. And that's my job. If there's too much, I take them away. If there's too little, I give some back.
I love that. And how do you take all of that and combine it with the mind, body, and the intuitive, integrative part there with all the things that you learned with Deepak Chopra and all of that? Because it sounds pretty cut and dry, with hormones, levels, adding or taking away, but there's this whole other side to it as well.
Right. And it's a very good question. And it's about the fact that conventional medicine does not recognize that the mind and the body are interrelated to each other, and that anything that happens in the body affects the mind, and anything that happens in the mind affects the body. And you can imagine, as I will give you an example, if at some point you have been scared, or at some point where you have been stressed, or your mind has been anxious or alert about something, and all of a sudden you feel your heart is pumping hard, and you might feel lightheaded, you might feel butterflies in your stomach, and it turns out that when we're very stressed in the mind, or when we're suffering, our body just doesn't work so well, because there's a gut-mind connection, and the whole vagus nerve regulates how we digest our foods and how our bodies work. So when we're stressed out, we're more in adrenaline mode, flight, fight experience. And when we're in that place, the body does not work well. I could flip it around and say to you that if you've ever had an injury, or if you have been wanting to do something, or in the middle of doing something fantastic, and your body fails on you because you've broken something, or you've developed a cancer, or you've developed something else that kind of stops your life for a moment, this has significant impacts as to how your mind thinks about the world. and about how you see yourself, the outcome, how you will take care of yourself. So there's an integral connection between many things. I'll give you another example. There are women that want to lose weight, know how to lose weight. They know what they have to do. Yet when they try to lose weight, something about them stops them and prevents them from doing what they need to do to lose weight. So what is that? What is preventing you from doing what you think that you need to be doing? It could be with anything else. It could be that you want to stop a habit and you keep on doing the habit, and you know you shouldn't be doing it, but why are you doing it? And usually the mind is behind this. There are reasons that the mind has to not allow you to accomplish your goals in life. And that may have to do with inner traumas, inner hurts. If someone, for example, has been raped as a younger woman, and when her body was in a particular way, she may have gained weight to protect herself from such an encounter again. So this is a younger part of her. This happened when she was young, yet the hurt and the trauma remains within. So if she's trying to lose weight now, there's a part of her that's saying, no, you know what? I really can't do this, and prevents you from doing that. So there's a complete body interaction that goes back and forth between the places. And if you don't look at this, if you can't understand that somebody has a particular suffering, you can't expect them to do something that you tell them to do when there's a part of them that doesn't understand what's happening, or they're afraid, or they feel that they can't help themselves. So there's mindsets that are involved that interfere with the outcomes, health outcomes, and our desires and success in life.
Wow. That's a lot right there. And it's you're spot on as well. Because I find the same thing from a holistic point of view, working in my own health, that I went through years ago. So I have a couple of follow-up questions here for that. But first, we're going to take that quick sponsor break, and we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll be asking some more deep dive questions. Get what you always wanted. Abundant life is possible. Transform your lifestyle in just weeks with the most innovative system developed for heart-centered business professionals who seek change today. You are one step away from creating infinite prosperity, happiness, and love. Grab your bonus link now that's in the show notes. All right, welcome back here to the Healing Heart Podcast. And my guest is Dr. Beatriz Olson. And we've been talking about endocrinology, but yet the mind, body, and how that all works and integrates together. And I think you made some really good points that you have to look at how the mind affects the body and not just what the body is doing, just on the physical level for physical level dis-ease, and putting that all into place. And you were talking about women and losing weight, but yet there might be an associated to a trauma, to not complete a goal, to not have the ability to lose weight, that the mind really needs to work through in order to get the result in the body while the hormones balance. Now, I'm kind of curious about a couple of things. My own journey for myself, I wasn't able to digest food for 2 years. I did go the medical route, and the doctors weren't able to figure out what was wrong with me because they were looking at it as a separate compartment, until I went to a holistic healer who did Oriental medicine, a doctor of naturopathic, and learned that there was this mind connection as well, which started me on my journey. What I'm curious about was she told me that I couldn't digest food because there was something in the outside of my life that I couldn't digest. And then months later, I realized the emotional component of anger, and the anger that I was holding on inside internally from past traumas. So my questions for you is, do you find that different parts of the body relate to different traumas, to emotions like the digestive tract to anger, stress and fear maybe to the endocrine system? What is your viewpoint and take on how those emotions play in with those hormones?
That's a really, really good question. I'd like to say that anger actually comes from a place of being rejected,
Mhm,
not having been seen, or not having been heard, or not having been valued, or actions taken towards you that don't value your mind and your body and your spirit.
mhm,
So, this is the source of anger. So, anger is easier to act on
mhm,
because it's hard to see the depth of what led to the problem in the first place.
mhm,
And I would say that, and there's a wonderful book by Cal Shed, which is The Body Keeps the Score. And the idea is that everything that we experience in life is kept at some place in our body. So, many of you know that when you're sad, Donna, where do you feel it in your body?
Oh, usually in the heart space.
Okay. So some people feel it in the heart space and some people feel it in the throat space
Mhm,
because it's a feeling that we have. It could be a hurt, it could be a loss, for which often we don't initially have the language to express it.
mhm,
So it is felt in different parts of the body. And in terms of not digesting the food well, there's multiple reasons for that. As you know, the microbiome, the bacteria of the intestines, have an intact and clear communication with our brain. In fact, the microbiome regulates whether or not we're gaining or losing weight, whether we're happy or not happy, whether we're anxious or whatever, because that interaction of what we're getting from the bacteria, the foods that we have, are constantly interacting with the vagus nerve and into the brain. So there are many reasons. So when we are very stressed, for example, or something has happened to us, we could get leaky gut or
mhm,
dysbiosis, and that can lead to an inflammatory condition in the body, an autoimmune disease. We can also develop celiac-like and non-celiac-like disease, so that the blood tests by conventional medicine are negative, but you're sensitive to things, so you stop absorbing foods in the body. So there's many reasons of why this happens, but truly at the high energetic level, everything is interconnected. We're energy and information, and the reason why we see each other that is that we're concentrated molecules at this point that we can see in our visual range, but energetically we are beyond this space, and we're affected at multiple levels by how others interact with us, others' energies towards us, how we respond to them, and we can have blocks, physical blocks, and sickness in our body as a result of holding negative emotions in our body. So yes, they're very linked and in all of these places. That's why when we are dealing with emotions, we ask that inner part of us, what are you feeling? And where are you feeling it in the body? This is
mhm,
part of the work. This is what my book is about. It's basically um, the interaction between mind and body, and the things that we need to know that people don't know to create wellness long term in our bodies. I also specialize in age management medicine, so I'm very interested in creating pathways where people age well,
mhm,
um, healthy. So
mhm.
you're not sick while you're dying. You're kind of healthy when you die, kind of thing.
So I have a couple more questions here.
Mhm.
And the one is on with women's health. And you talked about how we can keep on the excess weight and then not be able to lose it to a past trauma or things. But a lot of times, women, we will carry our excess weight in the lower stomach and the hips. And then, of course, we were talking about emotions and how things work and all of that. So, what would be a great tip or a way to release from a holistic point of view that excess weight if it's targeted in a particular area?
Well, there's many reasons why the weight for women is targeted in the abdominal area, and that's because when we lose our hormones, If
Mhm.
you're not on hormone replacement therapy, after you lose your hormones, you lose the capacity, you get more insulin resistance. So there's really very good biologic reasons for this. I write about this in the book. And the question is, how do you counteract this thing? So women have a different pathway as to why they gain the weight. So when they lose estrogen, the effect of the adrenals becomes greater in terms of where the weight goes. The
Mhm.
microbiome changes, so the bacteria of our intestines are different. How we put our fat in the body changes because estrogen allows us to be more insulin sensitive. As you know, insulin is one of these hormones that regulates how we handle sugar in our diets. So we become even more resistant to insulin. And so there are very specific steps that women have to take as they enter perimenopause and menopause. When the estrogen levels begin to drop, the metabolism drops by about 160 calories per day, which means that if you keep on eating the same calories that you had before, you have now an excess amount of 160 calories per day. And they add up over time, which is why women tend to gain weight over time, and because of the resistance of the insulin and also the deficit in sleeping at the time of the menopause and the perimenopause, all contribute to increased hunger and deposition of fat where it shouldn't be there. So realistically, women need to begin to think about themselves differently in the perimenopause and menopause, and shift the balance of what they're eating and their activities to be able to do
Mhm.
well in the process. So I, for example, had obesity as a younger woman. And I have had the most wonderful, perfect weight for the last 40 years since I learned how to figure this out. And I went into menopause and I didn't gain weight
Mhm.
because I knew what to do ahead of time to be able to prepare myself. You have to work harder and you have to do a little bit more.
Awesome. That is a lot right there to take in and to learn. And my brain is just going in a lot of different directions, looking at all of the different connections and how it all puts together. This is a topic that we hadn't talked about yet on this question, but it goes back to hormones and how it works with endocrinology. I'm curious about relationships. And so, say you're in one relationship and you're very attracted to the other person, and they're attracted to you and you have a relationship. But then over time, it crumbles. There's other emotions and energies and things come at play. And that person who once was attractive is no longer attractive, or you're no longer wanting to connect with them. And then you even feel it, in a hormone way that you're wanting to push the other person away instead of pull them to you. What types of things can shift and change in relationships with hormones, with endocrinology, and the person's body
Mm-hmm.
for that pattern of relationships?
Okay, so yes, so there are many components to this that you're asking, and I'm used to dealing from younger age group to the older age group. So relationships require tending. I've been married for 40 years,
Mhm.
and that's a long time to be married. So the question is, how do you maintain a vibrant sexual and intimate and loving relationship with someone for a long time? And at some level, I think it boils down to the fact that we humans like diversity. We like variety. So it's natural for people to be attracted to other people and to other things. The question is, how do you keep a commitment and how do you keep a relationship alive with somebody else? And I think that a big component is that we often take people for granted. And any relationship is like having a garden. If you stop watering the plants, and if you stop trimming them or taking away the dead buds and other things, things become ugly over time.
Mhm.
So in any relationship, number one, even though things change, one can find newness in the other person every day. And that comes from having positive regard,
Mhm.
looking at the other person with positivity and believing in them. And that doesn't mean that we take abuse. That doesn't mean that we take anything that is constantly negative towards us. We create boundaries and we get rid of those people. Those people are not good for us. So we can maintain a positive environment. But if we have a good person with us and we're all growing and we're all different every day. So if we can't make the effort to say, this happened to me today, this is how I felt, and the other person can meet you in that space and can tell you, this is what happened to me today. That's what it takes to keep a relationship going. And there's also how to be generative when things are breaking down. How can you come to a conversation with a sense of your wholeness in it? Not your anger, not your negativity. We don't get there. We have to come to a place of common ground and identify, let's start from here. These are my intentions. This is a very complex topic that I happen to have a great interest in because I'm a woman's coach. I'm a woman-centered coach. So in fact, my chapter 8 of my book is dedicated to generative conversations, because that's what allows for relationships to last or not last. One last thing, when we women go into menopause, our hormones drop. When our hormones drop, the vagina hurts because it gets dried. So intercourse can become painful. And if this happens at a time of our lives when we have not had a relationship with our partners because we've been confused and by taking care of everybody else, but our relationship and ourselves, it's a hard time when the kids go to college and you're alone in the house with your husband. You don't know him very well and you have a painful vagina. So sex is difficult at this time. And it's something to really think about when you think about the range of things. But there's so much on this to discuss, so many ways to look at it. Thanks for the question.
Yes, truly, truly fascinating. And I know it was multifaceted there. Now, we've mentioned your book a couple of different times, Mind Body Secrets. So where can we get it? What are we going to find in it? Because I know there's more. There's always more.
So this is a book that I published. This is 20 years of research that I did with my work. And it's divided into 3 parts because I believe that without one understanding the mind, you cannot help the body. So I wrote the book because I thought I was going to die during COVID. And I thought that if I died, what would I regret? And that was giving the gifts that I was given. The reason why I'm here is to be an educator and to help people. And despite seeing so many patients, there's only so much you can say. I want to counteract the epidemics that we're facing: diabetes, obesity, depression, anxiety, burnout, loneliness. And I felt that this book would make a difference in this. So the book has, the first part is about the mind, dealing how we look at the world, our mindsets, the inner family system, our emotions, dealing with stress. Once we capture that, then the second part of the book has to do with the body, our digestive system, how we deal with our fat cells, how we deal with our hormones, what is the mind-body connection, and how is it that we can lose weight despite the tendency ancestrally for us to gain weight, because we're ancestral creatures in a world of abundance. And then the last part has to do with relationships with others, as they are very, very important as we're changing ourselves to a higher level of being in consciousness and physicality. And then eventually recognizing that spirituality, in whichever form we have, is very important for us, particularly in times of difficulties. And there's a lot of data on this in patients who are dying or patients that are facing chronic illnesses. And how is it that we can connect to what we believe is spirituality, to our soul? What is the soul, and what is grace? And what are all of those components that are so important to have a soulful and meaningful life? So this is an incredible collection of really basic science and really 30 years of experience in mind-body medicine. It was published in Amazon. It's a #1 bestseller in Amazon and continues to be a bestseller. And it's there's the different versions, but there's links to my meditations in each chapter for the journaling that gets done after each chapter, because this is a transformational journey. When you finish the book, you will be different than when you start. And I also have a course online that that teaches principles like this and other things. But I feel this is a guide for wellness, and I wrote it because it would be long lasting. Things change all the time. I chose what were the elements that haven't changed with humanity over time, so I can help people. And the urgency for publishing was that truly I didn't think I was going to do it. So that's how I went through that way. But it's been bought now by more than 1,000 people, and I'm getting wonderful reviews. And I hope that you have a chance to read it too.
Yes, I'm excited because it's on my list to read because I love to study. So for everybody out there, make sure you grab her book, Mind Body Secrets, because it is full of priceless wisdom in the whole mind body connection and healing. So how can people get in touch with you? What is the best way?
Well, my website is beatrizolson.com, and Beatriz is BeatrizOlson.com.
Okay, perfect. And all of that is definitely going to be in the show notes. I know we went a little over time, but I'm so fascinated by this conversation and I have 20 more questions. But thank you so much for being with us today on the Healing Heart podcast.
Thank you so much, Donna, for having me. I hope this helps a lot of people. Bye.